Hey guys, tonight we're slipping into the dim, sour-smelling streets of 17th century Europe, where the skies hang heavy, the bells toll too often, and robed figures with terrifying bird masks shuffle past you in the fog. You step into the scene slowly, the damp of the cobblestones soaking through your shoes as you move past shuttered windows and scorched herbs burning on every corner. The air smells like rot vinegar and something vaguely fruity. In the distance, someone coughs and you flinch. Because tonight you're a plague doctor. Yes, the ones in the infamous beaked masks. But don't let the long, leathery coat and dramatic silhouette fool you. You're not a medieval superhero. You're mostly here to record deaths, whisper some prayers, and try very hard not to touch anything. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, drop your location and local time in the comments. I love seeing where you all are drifting off from. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You trudge forward as the sun dips low, casting a sickly yellow light over the alleyways. The ground is slick, not with rain, but with... Let's not talk about that. At your side swings a leather pouch full of dried herbs, scented oils, and precisely one half-squashed orange. Your outfit creaks with every step. It's made of heavy waxed fabric, layered thick like you're trying to cook yourself slowly. The long black robe sweeps across the filth of the street. Underneath, you're sweating buckets but dare not remove a thing. This is the price of survival, or at least the illusion of it. In your gloved hands, you hold your mask. It's a monstrous thing, crafted to look vaguely like a bird with glass eye lenses and a long, arched beak. A look that screams, "I'm here to help in the least comforting way possible." You strap it on anyway. Immediately, the world narrows. The beak juts out ahead of you, filled with a confusing bouquet of rose petals, cinnamon bark, mint, and dried lavender. It's meant to protect you. Miasma theory, they said. Bad smells bring bad illness. Surround yourself with pleasant ones, and maybe the plague will pass you by. Of course you still smell death. The mask doesn't stop that, it lingers always. Your breath fogs the inside of the lenses, your boots squish. You are, for all intents and purposes, a walking bird-scented sauna. Still, this is your job. You move from house to house, tapping the doors with a long stick. People peek from behind curtains or not at all. Sometimes you're let inside only to confirm what everyone already suspects. One more name to write. One more house to mark. You weren't trained for this. Most plague doctors weren't. Many were young, desperate physicians in training, or older men with debts and very few options. A few were charlatans riding the disaster for a quick payday. You're not quite sure where you land? You pause near a tavern abandoned now, of course. The sign swings quietly in the breeze. A rat scurries over your foot. You don't flinch. You're used to it. The plague hasn't just changed how people die, it's changed how they live. The city feels empty, even when it's not. The silence isn't peaceful, it's nervous, buzzing. Like the world is holding its breath and forgetting how to exhale. Historians still argue whether these early plague doctors actually helped, or just gave people something to hope for. In truth, you're not curing anyone. You're a symbol. A warning, a comfort, a ghost in broad daylight. You remember the contract you signed. It promised money, decent money for dangerous work. You were told you'd be protected, paid, respected. You haven't been paid in weeks. You sleep in a dusty attic. You wake each night to coughing that isn't yours. You push on anyway. Another alley, another door. You knock. Inside, a mother holds a child who's far too still. Her eyes meet yours. She says nothing. You say nothing. What could you possibly say? You mark the house and walk away. Later, you sit alone by a dying fire mask, resting beside you like some strange animal carcass. You stare into the flames and wonder, not for the first time, what you're even doing. Are you delaying death, witnessing it? Or just wearing a costume so people feel better? Still, you'll get up tomorrow. You'll wear the suit. You'll stuff the beak with more herbs. Because even if it doesn't work, it gives you the illusion of purpose. And sometimes illusion is all anyone has left. You lie back. The fire crackles. Outside, the night deepens and the silence grows heavier. Your hand brushes against the mask and you think for just a second that it moved. But it didn't. Probably. Morning arrives without much fanfare. The city doesn't wake so much as it coughs itself upright. You, on the other hand, are already dressed if you ever really undressed to begin with. You sip thin tea burnt to bitterness and stare at the wall, where a single moth tries unsuccessfully to escape through the plaster. That moth has more optimism than most. Outside, the air feels thicker. The smell of vinegar hangs everywhere, splashed over doorways, windows, even the hems of skirts. It's the city's favorite remedy. If you can't kill the disease, at least stink it out. You pull on your gloves and double-check your satchel. Plague Diary charcoal ink coins, more out of habit than hope, and your ever-faithful companion, an increasingly mushy pomegranate. You press your mask into place again. There's a moment of suffocating silence as it seals around your face. The scent of crushed herbs floods your nose, vaguely pleasant, but also slightly sour like expired perfume. You're back inside the bird. Time to go. Your first call today is unusual. It's not a house, but a merchant cart near the city gates. A man waves you down with frantic arms, clearly ignoring the "don't touch the plague doctor" rule. He's drenched in sweat, and you can already see the swelling on his neck, lymph nodes like bruised peaches. Classic symptoms. You keep your distance. He tries to smile. It's not the plague, he croaks as his gums begin to bleed. You nod solemnly and record his name. The fruit next to him is half-rotted, glistening in the sun like painted wax. He tells you he's been rubbing lemon peel on his chest because a sailor said it kept away demons. You don't correct him. You don't even know if he's wrong. You offer him your pomegranate. He takes it gratefully like it's holy. You move on. The day continues like a grim scavenger hunt. Mark the infected, avoid the ones who cough, and keep your cloak from trailing in anything moist. You knock on a convent door next. The nun who answers is pale but unflinching. She says Sister Bernadine has the sweating sickness. You're skeptical, but when you see Bernadine shivering, muttering Latin phrases backwards, you start to wonder if there's a new strain. Do you smell oranges, she whispers. You do. That's because your mask is full of them. She smiles at you, then promptly faints. You leave her some rosemary. Not because it helps, but because it's something. Historians still debate whether these herbal fumigations offered any real protection, or just provided psychological comfort. But sometimes belief is its own kind of barrier. You pause to rest on a bench if you can call a plank of wood swarmed by flies a bench. A child walks past holding her doll by one foot. The doll has a tiny beak mask stitched out of rag. The child waves at you. You wave back. It wasn't always like this. You remember vaguely when people still laughed in public, when musicians played on corners instead of funerals? Before the plague made everyone into actors pretending not to be terrified, pretending not to notice the constant funerals. Back then your job might have seemed like a joke. A scary costume with no real purpose. But now your very presence is a strange sort of comfort. The plague doctor came by today, people say, like it's a good omen. Never mind that half of them don't live to say it twice. You reach the city center. A scaffold is being assembled. Execution, you ask a guardsman, your voice muffled under your mask. No, he replies. Barber demonstration? They're bleeding a goat. Say it clears the bad humors. You nod. Seems about right. The concept of humors is the height of current science. 4 fluids govern your health blood phlegm. Yellow bile and black bile. Too much of one, you're imbalanced. The cured leeches or vomit. Or possibly a brisk jog followed by some wine and a nap in an herb-stuffed mattress. And if none of that works, you put on a bird mask and hope the fruit inside saves your lungs. You make one final stop, an abandoned bakery that's been repurposed into a plague shelter. The air inside smells like bread sweat and despair. A man lies on the floor covered in rose petals. Someone has tried to make the room cheerful by hanging lemons from the ceiling with string. It's surreal, but also oddly lovely. He opens his eyes as you approach and asks, "Is this the part where you say something wise?" You shake your head. "I'm not that kind of doctor." He smiles faintly. "Figured." You check his pulse. It's slow, but there. You give him a drop of oil of cloves. Not because it works, but because it smells like home. Maybe it will help him dream of something warmer. You write in your diary, then step outside. The sunset is blood orange, painting the city in shades of fire and ash. You walk home slowly, your mask heavier than ever. The fruit inside has started to turn. The nights hit different now. Before the plague evening was a welcome pause, candles-lit wine shared fire crackling. Now it's when the coughing gets louder and the air feels like it presses against your lungs with thick, invisible fingers. You lie on your cot still fully dressed. You haven't removed the mask yet, just tilted it upward enough to sip broth through a wooden straw. It tastes like boiled regret. Somewhere nearby a bell tolls once, then twice. Not for curfew. That's the dead card. Someone didn't make it. You reach up and adjust the fruit pouch nestled in your beak. The pomegranate's fading fast, its sweetness now more like vinegar, its seeds crushed and sour. It's not just for smell, of course. The fruit, along with mint camphor and rose petals, is meant to purify the air before it enters your lungs. It doesn't, but it feels like it does, and that's enough for tonight. You think about how absurd it is that this getup, the cloak, the gloves, the stick you used to poke at patients from a distance, was someone's best guess. Historians still argue whether this costume was truly meant to be practical protection, or just a way to keep the doctor psychologically distanced from death. Like armor for the soul. You look down at your gloves. The fingers are cracked. You flex them anyway. They called you when the cloth merchant's wife took ill. She'd been selling silk scented with orange peel and cloves, believing it would sweeten the blood. She greeted you with a smile, trembling so violently she spilled a jar of cinnamon bark. The scent hit your nose even through the herbs in your mask. You remember thinking how oddly festive it all smelled, like holiday markets wrapped in horror. Her husband watched as you examined her. "We've kept her warm," he said. Tucked oranges under her pillow. You nod. Warmth is good. Oranges are something. She blinked up at you, eyes rimmed with red, and whispered, "I dreamed I was a bird." You didn't tell her she wasn't the first. Bird dreams are common now. Too many people see your mask and start speaking of flight feather sky. It's like some collective madness. Maybe they see you as a harbinger. Maybe they just want to leave their bodies. You left her some clove oil and a boiled pear. When you returned 2 days later, there was only the scent of cinnamon and silence. The night deepened. You finally remove your mask and hang it beside the door where it sways slightly in the breeze. The long beak casts a shadow like a question mark across your wall. You glance at your mirror, cracked, cloudy, but still reflective enough to show your face. You barely recognize it anymore. Pale, hollowed, your beard's grown unruly beneath the mask line. You think of the others plague doctors in other cities. Some of them wear beaks shaped like crocodile heads or stylized hawks. One Venetian even carved his mask from wood and painted it gold. Theaters have begun mocking your costume in plays even as real doctors fall ill wearing it. You press your hand to your chest and try to feel your heartbeat. Still there. Still slow. The fruit isn't what saves you, you know that. But you also know there's no science here. Not really. Just ritual. A loud knock shakes you back to alertness. You grab your staff mostly for show and answer the door. A messenger boy stands panting, face streaked with soot. "There's a family in the East Quarter," he says. The boy's coughing blood. You nod and pull the mask back on. The herbs are dry now. You tuck in a fresh orange peel, not because it works, but because it's what you do. The streets are empty as you walk. The only sounds are your boots echoing and the distant flicker of flame from the watchman's torches. You remember a time when the night smelled of roasting chestnuts and wet cobblestones. Now it smells like vinegar and smoke. At the East Quarter, the boy's already gone. His mother clutches your sleeve and begs, "Can I keep the body until morning?" You nod. You leave them with a dried fig. Symbolic, mostly. In some regions, it's believed that figs prevent the soul from wandering. You're not sure who invented that, but tonight it feels kind. Back at your quarters, the mask comes off again. You lay down, not quite asleep, not quite awake. You dream of feathers. The dawn doesn't rise gently anymore. It drags itself up over the rooftops like an exhausted beast casting a pale gray light that doesn't so much warm as reveal things you'd rather not see. From your narrow window, you watch the city awaken, or more accurately shuffle forward, bleary and bruised. Down the lane, someone's burning lavender branches again. You catch the scent even through your closed shutters. A superstition, they say lavender repels evil humors. You've used worse, you've seen worse. Today's assignment is peculiar. You're summoned not to a home or a hospice, but a workshop. Specifically, a perfumer's shop. When you arrive, the air is thick, almost sticky with overlapping smells, roses and resin, cinnamon musk, and something oddly sour. It's not unpleasant, just intense. The perfumer, a wiry man with a permanently raised eyebrow and gloves stained with oil, greets you with a bow. "I called for science," he says, then gestures toward a table littered with glass bottles and strips of cloth. You eye a small vial with a wax seal citrus aurantium. Bitter orange. Next to it, a chunk of ambergris. Whale vomit, essentially. Expensive. Sought after. Revered. He leans in. If scents protect the lungs, why not engineer the perfect one? I've mixed pomegranate with bergamot and a touch of rotting apple. Sweet rot, they call it. He lifts the vial proudly. Would you like a test inhalation? You consider it. This is what the plague has done. Made people invent charms from horror? Historian types might one day debate whether this moment was desperation or a glimpse of early medical chemistry. You suspect it's both. You let him dab the mix onto the herbs lining your mask's beak. The effect is immediate, pungent, heady, oddly soothing, like inhaling a memory of autumn while standing in a battlefield. The perfumer nods approvingly. You're the future, you know. You lot with your masks and staffs. People talk about you more than priests these days. You adjust your gloves, not always flatteringly. Oh, of course not, he smirks, but they listen. As you leave, he offers a final thought. If fear spreads by breath, maybe hope does too. Outside, the streets are still too quiet. A milk cart stands abandoned. A child's wooden horse lies broken in the gutter. Even pigeons seem reluctant to coo. You remember what someone told you once, how in another city plague doctors started putting cut fruit in the mouths of the dead to sweeten the soul's parting? You found it ridiculous at the time, but now you wonder. Later you're called to a convent. The abbess stands firm veil, fluttering arms crossed. We've lost 5, she says. I forbid the nuns to see you masked. You blink. I beg your pardon? They find it disturbing, she continues. The beak, the black, the way you look like death come calling. You'll speak to them face to face, human to human. It takes you a moment to respond. Sister, you say slowly, the mask is not a costume, it's protection. For me, for them. She doesn't flinch. If they are to die, let them at least die looking at a face, not a bird. It's a cruel choice, but you make it. Inside, you remove your mask. Your face itches instantly in the presence of incense and decay. The nuns watch you with solemn eyes. Some smile. One barely older than a child presses a lemon to her nose and whispers, "It keeps the death away." You kneel beside her and don't correct her. Historians may one day argue about this too, about whether the removal of the mask was compassionate or foolish, whether human connection or hygiene should have prevailed. But you know the truth, there is no rule book. There's only now. Back in your quarters, you place the perfumer's vial beside your journal. You record the new scent's ingredients. You draw a small skull beside it just in case. Then you add a note smelled like bravery disguised as rot. You glance at the window again. A mother walks past with 2 children, all of them holding dried citrus peels to their faces like talismans. One child stares directly at your window. Doesn't blink. You nod. He nods back. You dream that night of walking through an orchard. The trees are full of fruit, but each apple has a mask. Some shaped like birds, some like smiling human faces. You pluck one. It weeps in your hand. You wake up with a strange pressure in your chest, the kind you feel before a storm. Not fear, not quite, more like expectation. The kind of sensation that whispers something is coming, and it does not care how much sleep you've had. Today your destination is not a home, not a convent, but the city morgue. The stone building sits like a forgotten god at the edge of town. It always seems damp, always seems to breathe. And somehow, no matter the time of day, the light inside is never quite right, too dim. Where you want clarity, too sharp, where you crave shadows. You're met by an undertaker whose face looks like it's never quite learned how to smile. He nods once and points silently to a long row of covered bodies. You begin the grim inventory. One by one, you peel back the shrouds, not completely, just enough to record sex age estimate visible signs of illness, any marks, and now, thanks to new orders from above. Beard length. Yes, beard length. You blink at that part of the instruction. We're measuring beards now. The undertaker shrugs. Apparently some think it spreads faster among the hirsute. Or maybe they just want to track fashion among the dead. Historians will no doubt have a field day with this arguing, whether it was a public health measure, an early form of epidemiology, or just bureaucratic panic turned absurd. For now, it's your task. You hold up a small wooden ruler to the chin of the third body. His beard is short patchy. He looks like he died mid-sentence. His eyes still slightly open, teeth clenched as if gripping some final unspoken word. You write beard 2.1 cm. You don't feel like laughing. In the back of the morgue, something odd catches your eye. A jar. No label. Inside a floating pear cut in half. Preserved in what looks like vinegar. You ask the undertaker about it. He doesn't look up. Plague offering. Some say fruit helps the soul find its way. We keep them when the family insists. It's strange. The longer you work here, the more you realize how many rituals are really just people trying to feel like they've done something. A bowl of fruit, a sprig of mint, a shaved beard, anything to say I tried. Back outside, the air tastes smoky. You follow it to a public square where a group of children have built a strange sort of altar. Pebbles, bird bones, fruit rinds arranged in a spiral. They're chanting softly. You pause watching them. One girl notices you and grins. It keeps the sick away, she says, pointing to the fruit core at the center. It smells like medicine. You crouch beside her. Where did you learn that? She shrugs. My brother told me. He said it's what the plague birds do. You glance around. Plague birds. She nods solemnly and points at your beaked mask slung over your shoulder. Like you. You smile a little tired, reflexive. We're not birds, you know. Just people in masks. She leans in. Birds are just people in feathers. There's something in that sentence that sits with you the rest of the day. You replay it again and again. Birds are just people in feathers. You return home and record it in your notebook alongside the beard measurements and a sketch of the fruit jar. You add a new entry. Folk logic is more enduring than state decree. The mask gives us wings, the herbs give us comfort, and the fruit gives us hope. That night, a neighbor comes to your door. She's older, nearly toothless eyes like cracked marbles. My grandson's fever won't break, she says. He keeps whispering about apples and birds. I thought maybe you don't ask why she came to you instead of a physician. At this point, you know. You wear the mask. That's enough. In the boy's room, it's dark and wet. His skin is flushed, but his eyes are clear. You have feathers, he says. You nod. Sometimes. Will you bring fruit? You glance around. Nothing. But you reach into your satchel and pull out a dried orange slice. He takes it like it's a sacred object and presses it to his lips. You sit beside him for hours. He sleeps. You don't. Somewhere near dawn, you hear crows outside. Their cawing cuts through the quiet like broken laughter. You step outside, the mask tucked under your arm, and look up. You don't see them, but you feel them watching. And in your mind, a phrase repeats, birds are just people in feathers. Your boots crunch over gravel as you make your way to the outer edge of town. It's an area less visited, half forgotten, where the land folds into itself like an old quilt. Here the homes are smaller, patched with mismatched wood and mud, and the windows stay shuttered even at noon. But today you're not here for a visit. You've been summoned. You're not the only one. Outside a makeshift cottage near a crooked fence, a line of townspeople forms. Some are holding infants swaddled tight. Others carry little jars, each containing some pungent herb or pungent pulpy fruit. A few, you notice, clutch dried twigs shaped vaguely like birds or crosses. They're here for blessings. Not from the church, from you. The robe, the beak, the gloves, the long cane. That's all it takes. You became the symbol. Not by choice, but by repetition. Now, when a child coughs, or a husband shivers, or a goat dies suddenly in the night, they come to you bearing pears, apples, even pomegranates, because they've heard fruit keeps the plague away. They believe the fruit, the beak, and the ritual form a triangle of protection. You say nothing. You tap each shoulder with your cane and nod as if initiating them into an ancient guild. One woman kneels and presses a half-rotted quince into your hand. For your work, she whispers. So you don't fade away. You thank her, quietly. Inside the cottage, the smell hits first something sour, layered over decay like moldy lemons left in a trunk. You're led to the sickbed. A young man. Barely 20. His beard is ragged and moist with sweat. His eyes flutter as you approach. He startles at the sight of your mask, then relaxes. Another one of those strange reactions, fright followed by comfort. The plague mask is fear incarnate, yet it reassures people like a mother's lullaby sung in a foreign tongue. You inspect him gently, slowly. His breath rattles. His skin is blotched. You offer the pear. Why? You're not sure anymore. But it's become your ritual too. He accepts it with trembling fingers, sniffs it, then presses it to his chest like a holy relic. Tell me what the birds say, he murmurs. You hesitate. They say you'll rest easy. It's not medicine, but sometimes stories work better. Later you return home and add the moment to your growing journal. You've taken to organizing it not by date, but by mask. Every time you retire a mask, you assign it a chapter. This one, the third you've used, is titled The Fruit Season. You flip back through earlier entries. One page stands out. Some say the beak was filled with herbs to ward off the stink. Others claim it mimicked the ibis sacred to Thoth, god of knowledge. But no matter the origin, the effect is the same presence becomes power. We wear the mask, and they believe. Historians still debate the real function of those fragrant beaks. Some argue it was genuinely for filtering bad air, the miasma theory being dominant at the time. Others think it was pure symbolism, a theatrical barrier between life and death. The truth probably lies somewhere in between. You sit back. Outside wind rattles the shutters. You feel the weight of your own presence in the room, like you've started to believe your own legend. And maybe you have, because today you didn't prescribe tinctures. You didn't bleed anyone. You didn't boil herbs, you offered a fruit. You whispered a lie, and it worked, at least for now. You fall asleep in your chair, still masked journal open on your lap. You dream. In the dream, you walk through a forest of trees made of bone. Their branches are hung with pears. Each fruit holds a human face, some whispering, some silent. You pluck one. It looks at you and says, "We remember the hands that held us." You drop it. The forest shakes. You wake up in a cold sweat. The mask slides off your lap and thuds against the floor. In the silence, you hear a soft sound. Drip, drip, drip. You look around. A pear on your windowsill is weeping juice. You don't remember putting it there. You don't throw it away. The next day, more fruit arrives. No one says who leaves it. It's placed carefully outside your door. Some fresh, some bruised, some marked with charcoal drawings of birds or masks. You begin collecting them. You call them offerings. Whether from gratitude or fear, you do not know. You wake with a stiff neck and the imprint of your journal's spine etched into your cheek. Sunlight filters weakly through the dusty window panes. You're still wearing the heavy plague doctor robe. The mask rests beside your foot like a shed exoskeleton. You stretch, wincing, then rise and step carefully around the offerings piled by the door. More pears, more drawings, even a necklace made from dried citrus slices and pressed lavender. Someone had time. Outside, the village is quieter than usual. A strange quiet, not the hush of peace, but the breath-holding silence before a scream. You step into the square and notice eyes darting behind shutters, shapes hunched behind curtains. Something is wrong. A child breaks from an alley and runs to you, wide-eyed and barefoot, clutching what looks like a bundle of feathers and bones. She says nothing, just holds it out. You kneel and inspect it. It's a crude effigy. The beaked mask, the hat, the black cloak, she's fashioned a tiny plague doctor out of twigs and goose feathers. Its face has been painted with red berries. The likeness is uncanny. You look at her. She whispers, "They say you can't die if your bird keeps watch." And then she runs. You carry the effigy with you as you follow the sounds, murmuring voices, shuffling feet toward the edge of the market road. There you find the crowd. They part slowly as you arrive. In the center lies a body curled in an almost fetal position, clutching a bowl of rotted cherries. One of the fruit believers. A man you once touched on the shoulder with your cane and told you're safe now. He isn't. The villagers look at you not with blame, but with expectation. As though they know this is a test, a performance. A moment when belief must override logic. So you bend. You lift the body gently and whisper nonsense into the dead man's ear. You place the feather effigy in his hands. Then you look to the sky, make the sign of the bird, 3 fingers curled, 1 raised, and step back. The crowd murmurs. A woman begins to weep softly, and oddly a man claps once, slowly. You've given them something again, ritual. Meaning? Control. In a world where control vanished months ago, replaced by invisible airborne death and inexplicable rules, your ability to act is sacred. Back at your home, you write it down. The mask protects no one, but it transforms the wearer. You are no longer you. You are a shape, a sign, a keeper of fear and comfort. Historians still argue whether plague doctors were more theater than medicine. Many lacked training, after all. Some were simply men paid to walk through infected towns and keep records. Others were charlatans, selling citrus peels and vinegar-soaked rags. But it didn't matter to the people. The mask worked. Even if the medicine didn't. You examine your own beak, tracing the wood grain, the faint residue of cloves and mint inside. You think of how ridiculous it is, how surreal. And yet when you wear it, people step aside. They listen. They believe. You wonder, that night you visit a house on the hill, one you've avoided. It belongs to your old teacher, the man who taught you letters, herbs, history. He refused to leave when the plague came, insisted the air was no worse than last year's. You enter. Inside it smells of sage and vinegar. You know those smells. He sits in the corner covered in furs, barely breathing. He doesn't see you. You kneel, you take his hand. His eyes flutter open. He rasps. Then, why are you dressed like a stork? You smile, or try to. I thought it'd make me brave. He chuckles, coughs, winces. Idiot, he whispers, but you always were. You remove your mask, slowly. It's the first time you've done it in front of someone in weeks. He looks at your face for a long moment. Then you look younger without the beak. You smile again this time, real. He dies before sunrise. You wrap him in a linen sheet, tuck dried fruit into the folds, place a feather on his chest. Not because it'll save him, but because now it's what you do. You are the ritual, even for those who taught you reason. You find yourself walking without knowing where you're going. The sunrise filters through your beak's lenses like two pools of diluted amber, casting a blurry glow over the cobblestones. Your hands are tucked behind your back, a practiced pose of authority. Your steps echo. You arrive at a makeshift infirmary that used to be a monastery. Its stone walls still bear faded murals, saints with hollow eyes, halos chipped. Inside, a row of sick stretch across straw mats. Some moan, some sleep. One simply stares at the ceiling, unmoving, eyes wide. There's nothing you can do for them, but you move anyway, cane clicking beside you. One woman holds a prayer to her lips like a prayer, eyes closed in silent devotion. Another clutches a cloth satchel filled with dried citrus rinds, snoring softly. You touch shoulders, murmur comforts. Leave vials of spiced vinegar where they can be seen. You're not curing, you're curating their hope, their peace. At the end of the row sits a boy, barely breathing, cheeks flushed purple. A priest meets your eyes. You can't save him, he says, solemn. I've already given last rites. You nod, and then you sit. You take off your gloves, your fingers pale and wrinkled beneath the layers. Gently you touch the boy's hand. It's warm, not burning, but warm. You hum an old song your mother used to sing, something about foxes and fishermen. The notes are off-key through the beak, but the boy opens his eyes. Bird, he whispers. You nod. He smiles and closes his eyes again. It's unclear whether he'll live. But for a moment he is calm. That moment is everything. Historians still debate whether plague doctors truly helped or simply symbolized effort. Many wore the costume only once for ceremony. Others stayed for weeks, recording the dead, scribbling tallies beside doors. Some became infected themselves, not from the air, but from closeness, from touching, from daring to remove their mask to speak more clearly. You return home late. The day has scraped something from you. At your table, the letter waits. It's sealed with red wax, the mark of the regional lord. You break it. Doctor, we request your presence at the capital. The disease has spread. Your reputation precedes you. Bring the mask. Bring the fruit. A carriage arrives in 2 days. You lean back. Your stomach twists. The capital. You hadn't imagined leaving this village. You'd become something here, something stable. Not trusted, perhaps, but accepted. In the candlelight, your shadow stretches against the wall like a bird with its wings folded. The mask watches you from its hook, its beak bowed. You spend the evening packing. You choose 2 masks, your own, and one smaller, older, cracked down the side. The one you wore your first week before you understood what it meant. You tuck a pouch of herbs into your coat. A child knocks at your door. You open it. She holds a pear freshly picked, its skin golden and dappled with red. For the road, she says, and bolts into the night before you can reply. You set the pear beside your candle. The flame flickers, the wax runs. You don't eat the pear. You don't sleep. Instead, you stare at the hook where your mask hangs, wondering, not for the first time, who wears whom. Is it you behind the beak, or has the beak somehow crept into you? The next morning, the carriage arrives. It's black heavy, pulled by 2 tired horses. The driver doesn't speak. You climb in your mask in your lap, the feathered effigy tucked into your pocket. The village watches silently. A child waves. You wave back. As the wheels clatter into motion, you realize they didn't ask for a doctor. They asked for a shape, a shadow, a bird that walks on 2 legs and carries fruit. And you've become that. The carriage rocks you into a numb sort of calm. You watch through the narrow window as fields blur past wheat bent low by the wind trees, skeletal with plague. Season a scarecrow slouched in a way that feels too human. Inside the mask rests on your knees like a sleeping pet. You stroke the beak once absently the way you used to pet your old dog before all of this began. It doesn't purr or wag its tail. It only stares blank-eyed and patient. You're not headed into safety. You're headed into fire. The capital smells wrong before you even see it. The wind carries a strange tang, metallic sour like blood soaked into limestone. You lean forward as the gates approach, and what strikes you isn't the guards or the walls, but the silence. A city of thousands, whispering. You're greeted by an official in a powdered wig that tilts a little too far to the left, his breath reeking of cloves. He calls you Master Bird with a nervous laugh, and refuses to walk within arm's reach. They lead you past closed shutters and locked doors. The streets are swept, but the corners are cluttered with waxy fruit offerings. Apples, lemons, pomegranates, half rotted on silver trays. People are leaving them out like protection charms, as if citrus were talismans that ward off evil spirits. You want to scoff, but you remember the boy clutching his pear like prayer? In the central square, a statue of the last king has been turned into a plague altar. His outstretched arm now holds a garland of garlic. A pair of plague masks hang around his neck like medals. There's something deeply absurd about it and also strangely fitting. They take you to your quarters. It's a former painter's loft now stripped bare. A cot, a basin, a stack of parchment and ink. You barely unpack before the summons arrives. The Royal Council wants a full update. You walk through the palace's echoing halls, your boots clicking beside the sound of your own breathing, measured, deliberate, softened by the beak. The guards at the door don't look at you. They stare forward, stiff and stoic hands, trembling slightly on their halberds. Inside the chamber, 10 faces turn toward you. Some are masked, others not. The Chancellor's nose is red and raw, and he keeps dabbing it with a cloth. The Queen's physician wears a frilled collar and hasn't slept in days. One noblewoman fans herself frantically even though it's freezing. "Doctor!" The Chancellor begins voice brittle. "What do you require to begin?" You glance around. These people want you to name your tools. Needles, syringes, potions, powders. They want the comfort of science. Instead you say lemons, quills, a musician. They blink. You add the sick don't need silence, they need rhythm. Familiar sounds, music. Historians still debate whether plague doctors ever prescribed music. In some records, flutes were played outside infirmaries. In others, chants were sung at sunrise. A few diaries even mention dance, yes, dance as a means of staving off despair. The line between medicine and performance has always been blurrier than we like to admit. The Chancellor nods. "Fine. What else?" "Privacy, you say, and permission to record." You aren't sure why you ask for the last one. Perhaps it's because you know what's coming next will need remembering. Perhaps because you've become the chronicler of this absurd, terrifying era. Or perhaps because writing makes it feel real and manageable. The Queen's physician narrows his eyes. You'll find the South District hardest hit. In the prisons, someone murmurs. You raise an eyebrow. The prisons. Yes, the Chancellor sighs. They didn't report their cases until this morning. Half the inmates are ill. We don't have enough masks. You nod. You'll go there first. You return to your quarters, light a candle, and begin assembling your tools. The herbs go in first: rosemary, lavender, mint, hyssop. Then the dried citrus peels. A few drops of vinegar. You slip into the robe, the gloves, the beak. The transformation is quiet. One moment you are a person. The next you are something else. You step into the night following the music of distant coughing. As you pass the central square, you notice something strange. A child has drawn a chalk outline of you on the cobblestones. It's crude, messy, but unmistakable. Beak, cloak, cane. Above it scrawled in a child's hand, Bird Doctor Good. You pause, and for the first time since arriving, you smile. Not because the title is accurate, but because it means something else. They were expecting you. They believe in you. That belief might be the most powerful remedy you carry. Prison looms like a broken tooth on the edge of the city. You approach it at dawn, fog still curling along the ground like cautious fingers. The walls are streaked with soot and mildew. The iron gates open just wide enough for you to slip through. No one comes to greet you, not at first. Just the sound of shuffling from within, and groaning. Lots of groaning. When the guard finally appears, he does so with his shirt pulled over his mouth and 2 lemons stuffed in a sack tied around his neck. It is technically an attempt at a mask. He doesn't speak, just gestures. You step inside, boots echoing through the corridor like cannon fire. A rat scurries by with a strip of cloth in its mouth, probably building a nest. You envy its sense of purpose. The cells are worse than you imagined. Men lying on straw mats, their eyes glassy, their breaths shallow. Some scratch at the walls, others pray. A few just stare. One man pulls his blanket higher at the sight of you. Another whispers, "Is it time?" You don't answer. You're not here to offer answers, only presence. You begin the rounds cane tapping. The beak makes your voice strange, filtered, nasal, barely human. You speak gently anyway. You check pulses, examine pupils. Ask questions no one has the energy to answer. A few blink in recognition. Most don't. One prisoner, tattooed, arms missing teeth, holds out a silver coin. "For the ferry," he rasps. You kneel beside him. You're not there yet. Sure feels like it. He coughs, then mutters, "You smell like oranges." Good, you say. That means it's working. You leave a sprig of mint beside his bedroll. It's all you have. Historians still argue whether plague doctors actually helped the sick or simply kept them company until death. In some towns, records show doctors surviving entire outbreaks without healing a single soul. In others, they were praised as miracle workers credited for recoveries they probably had nothing to do with. Were they medical pioneers or theatrical placeholders? You don't have time to wonder, because down the hall someone's screaming. You rush, cape, flaring cane clacking against stone. A young prisoner, barely a man, is thrashing in his cell, gripped by fever. He's ripping at his shirt, clawing at his own skin. You step in. The other prisoners watch from behind the bars, not interfering, just witnessing. You kneel beside him and hold his wrists. His eyes are wide and unfocused. "Don't let them in!" He gasps. "In where? My dreams." You don't answer. Instead, you take a cloth soaked in rose water and press it to his brow. It does nothing, but it does something. His breathing slows. The panic dims. He stares at you. "I thought you were a bird," he says. You offer the softest response you can through the mask. "Only when I fly." He laughs, just once, then sleeps. Later, as you write your notes, you add something new. Something not in the medical records. Some patients respond to touch, to rhythm, to presence more than prescriptions. You underline it twice. A guard brings you bread and fish. You eat on the edge of the courtyard, watching the sunlight smear across the cracked flagstones. From a second-story window, a prisoner waves at you. You wave back with your cane. The day ends, but your work doesn't. You move from prison to poorhouse to parish, repeating the same rituals. Examine. Listen. Comfort. Record. Repeat. At one stop, a woman insists you bless her onions before she eats them. At another, a child draws a face on your mask with coal and says you look friendlier now. You let it stay, and everywhere you go, the fruit piles grow larger. Apples stacked like altars. Lemons passed hand to hand like sacred beads. One beggar swears his fever broke after sniffing a pomelo. You write that down too. The beak becomes a symbol, at first one of dread, then perhaps something else. You overhear someone say, "The bird's coming, we're safe now." You wonder if they'd still say that if they saw your real face, tired, pale, afraid. But that's not your job. Your job is to be the mask, the myth, the hope. You walk home at dusk past shuttered windows and burning herbs. Children peek out. A woman leaves a sprig of rosemary on your doorstep. You sit by the candlelight, write more notes, and sip hot wine steeped with cloves. The city is holding its breath, and so are you. But for now, at least you're still breathing. Morning arrives slower these days. The sun barely lifts its head above the horizon as if unsure whether it wants to witness another round of suffering. You don't blame it. You begin with the poorer quarters, the ones no one else will go near. That's where the bodies pile up first. Narrow alleys, shuttered tenements. Smoke constantly drifting from chimneys as families burn anything they can to stay warm and feel clean. Your boots crunch over ash and orange peels. Children chase each other barefoot past shuttered doors, shouting, "Birdman, Birdman." One of them even tries to tug your cloak before her mother snatches her back and scolds her in hushed tones. They don't fear you quite as much anymore. You enter a two-room home and find a woman lying on a straw mattress, cheeks sunken, lips cracked. Her daughter sits beside her, fanning flies away with a piece of cloth. The girl can't be more than 9. She looks up at you and says, "Is Mama going to heaven?" You freeze for just a moment. You're trained to check pulses, not answer theology. But you say she's halfway there already. We just have to help her the rest of the way. It's the best you can offer. You press your gloved hand to the woman's wrist and feel something. Faint. Flickering, like a match underwater. You set down your satchel, pull out a small phial of vinegar, and dab her forehead. You place dried orange peel under the edge of her pillow. It probably won't help, but the smell seems to ease the girl's breathing. The woman murmurs something unintelligible. Her eyes don't open. As you lean in, the child whispers, "Will the fruit keep death away?" You pause, then for a little while. Sometimes that's enough. Historians still argue whether plague masks with their beaks full of herbs and fruits had any real medicinal benefit. Some claim they worked as crude filters. Others believe it was purely psychological hope masquerading as science. And still others think it was all theater, a performance to soothe fear while doctors fumbled in the dark. Today you believe in theater. It gets you through. You log the visit, then move on. The streets are quieter, not peaceful, just paused. On the corner you meet a man who insists he's cured. He says he drank a tea made from boiled pears and fennel and hasn't felt sick since. He tries to sell you a flask. You buy it even though you know it's nonsense. Because belief is a form of medicine too. In the next house, a man is lying face down on the floor, feverish and naked. His wife pleads with you to just do something. You dab his temples, fan his back, and leave a jar of crushed thyme. Then you hand the wife a small orange. Hold it close to his nose, you say. Tell him it's sunshine. She nods like you've given her the moon. At midday, you attend a meeting with other plague doctors. They look just as exhausted as you. One of them has started tying ribbons to his cane, one for each patient who survived. There are 5. Out of 60. You sip from a pewter cup of cider laced with cinnamon and listen to them debate new remedies. Powdered toad wine, soaked bandages, burning poppy seeds. One doctor insists that shaving heads will stop the contagion. Another swears by roasted apple skins and goat sweat. No one laughs. Someone mentions a new report from Venice, a doctor there who swears by a fruit-only diet. Another counters that he's heard the doctor died last week. No confirmation yet. You scribble a note anyway. Outside, dusk falls like a wet blanket. You return to the woman and her daughter. The candles burned low. The woman has passed. The daughter clutches the orange peel you left and asks, "Did it help?" You kneel, look her in the eyes. It helped her feel less alone. She nods, then curls beside her mother and begins to hum. You stand there for a long time before you leave. That night, you clean your beak mask by the fire. You remove the herbs and replace them with a new mixture: rosemary, lemon balm, crushed cloves, and something you can't name but smells like memory. You patch the leather where it's cracking, polish the lenses, tighten the straps. Then you stare at it for a long time. It does not blink, but it watches you all the same. You light a candle, climb into bed, and let the scent of citrus and vinegar lull you to sleep. In your dream, you walk through a city made of stone and smoke and birdsong. People point at you not in fear, but in reverence. A child reaches out and touches the tip of your beak. You smell like safety, she says. You wake up with tears in your eyes. And for once, they aren't from the onions. You wake to the sound of bells. Not the joyous peal of weddings or festivals, but slow, steady tolls. Each one marks a death. You count 12 before the bell tower fades back into silence. Then the coughing begins. Faint at first, then rising, spreading through the streets like the plague itself. The city is waking up again. You dress quickly, pull the beaked mask over your face. The familiar scent of rosemary and vinegar fills your nose. It no longer smells strange, it smells like you. A new kind of skin. Down in the street, someone has chalked a message on a wall: birds don't get sick. You don't know whether it's mockery or hope. Either way, you accept the compliment. Your first stop is the printing house. A local apothecary has hired a scribe to distribute broadsheets warning people to boil their fruit, burn their clothes, and recite certain Latin prayers before sleep. You skim the parchment. It smells of old ink and desperation. Will it help, the scribe asks? You shrug. It will give them something to hold on to. That's good enough. You take a bundle of the sheets and slip them into your satchel. One more layer of fruit-scented armor. Next stop the manor on the hill. A nobleman's son is ill. The housekeeper meets you at the gate with red-rimmed eyes. We've already called 2 priests, she says. They were too late. Inside the boys' room smells of lavender and melted beeswax. A feeble attempt to mask what everyone already knows. The child is pale, small, and still. His breathing rasps. You press your fingers gently against his throat. There's a flutter. Barely. You ask the nurse when the symptoms began. 2 nights ago, she says. He touched a basket of spoiled fruit brought from the docks. Of course he did. The nobleman himself arrives. He demands to know what you'll do. You tell him the truth. I'll sit with him. I'll give him herbs. I'll let him smell something sweet. And I'll pray the fruit wasn't too far gone. He wants more than that. Everyone always wants more. He leaves without saying another word. You stay. You place thin slices of lemon under the child's pillow. You anoint his wrists with a balm of sage and apple skin. You press a dried pomegranate flower into his hand. Historians still argue whether such treatments did anything more than comfort the dying. Some say the rituals kept people calm, which slowed the spread of panic and therefore disease. Others claim it was pure superstition. Yet others point out that many of these herbs have antimicrobial properties. Maybe they helped more than we knew. You leave the boy wrapped in warm blankets, your gloved hand lingering on his forehead. The nurse nods at you. You look like a crow, she says softly. You answer crows are clever. They remember kindness. She doesn't smile, but she doesn't cry either. Out in the street, children have begun selling plague charms carved from wood. Tiny fruit beads, tiny beak masks on string. A child offers you one and says it keeps the bad air away. You pay twice what it's worth and hang it from your belt. Because maybe, you stop at the orchard on the edge of town. The farmer greets you warily. I've burned half the trees, he says. Too many rotten cores. You inspect the fruit left behind. Some are bruised, some sour, but a few still shine in the sunlight. He gives you a satchel of his best oranges. You'll put them to better use than I can. You thank him. On your walk back, you pass a small chapel. The priest waves. He's wearing a bird mask now, too. It's poorly made paper and glue, but it's something. Inside, a woman kneels before a bowl of citrus, praying quietly. You lower your head. Sometimes rituals don't need to work to mean something. Back in the poor quarter, you find the girl from yesterday. She's sitting outside her home, gently peeling the orange you left her. Her mother's body has been taken away, but she remains. You sit beside her. She hands you half the orange without a word. You eat together in silence. The fruit is sweet. You wake the next morning to birdsong. Actual bird sparrows, maybe? Not crows, not carrion things. It's so rare you don't trust your ears. You lie still, eyes open behind your beak mask, waiting for the illusion to dissolve. But the chirping continues like little flutes played by sunlight. It's the first moment in weeks that feels not safe exactly, but something adjacent to it. You sit up, stretch stiff joints, pull the mask off and inhale. Not sweet, not foul, just air. In the street below, someone laughs. You blink hard. The sound is like a dream or a language you've forgotten. You dress slowly today, not out of laziness, but care. A deliberate rhythm. The layers of linen, the leather gloves, the smooth inner hood, the scented herbs in the nose, rosemary and orange peel this time. You choose your favorite walking stick, the one with the brass handle shaped like a lion's paw, because today you will walk and watch, and maybe not heal, but help. At the market square, a barber is shouting about his new cleansing tonic. Made from figs and vinegar, approved by 2 monks and a bishop. People are gathering, some nod, some roll their eyes. One woman mutters, I'd rather drink wine and die faster. You leave a coin on the barrel and take a bottle anyway. Not because you believe it, but because you know she needs to. There's a strange quiet in the city today. Not fear, not grief, just breath. You pass the baker's shop. The shutters are open again. A tray of warm buns sits in the window covered in cloth. A child runs by with one in each hand, grinning through jam-stained teeth. You remember what joy tastes like. At the apothecary, the shelves are lined with wax-sealed fruit jars, peaches in syrup, lemons preserved in salt, dried apple slices hanging in bundles. The shopkeeper sees you and offers a piece of ginger candy. You take two. She winks. That beak looks thinner today. You don't know what that means, but it feels like a compliment. You walk toward the river. There's a procession of clergy along the bank tossing herbs into the water. A ritual cleansing, a symbolic flood. It's all theater, but good theater matters. It reminds people that the story is still being written. You toss in a sprig of mint. Because why not? Historians still argue whether these ceremonies made any measurable difference. Some claim they reassured the public, acting as a placebo for society itself. Others see them as nothing more than pageantry, pretty lies dressed in liturgy, but maybe lies that comfort are better than truths that burn. Across the water you see an artist sketching. His fingers are stained with ink and charcoal. He sees you and grins. Holding still, he calls. You arch an eyebrow. For what? He lifts the drawing board. It's you. Or rather a version of you looming and strange. The beaked doctor. The city's silent guardian. His lines are sharp, his shading dramatic. Behind you he's drawn skulls and candles and fruit, always the fruit. Dramatic, isn't it, he says. You nod. You'll sell many. Already have, he winks. You should feel insulted, exploited, reduced to a caricature. But instead you smile. Because it means the people are talking, and that means they're remembering. A woman approaches you with a letter, sealed in green wax marked with the sign of the Scholars Guild. They want to meet, she says. They have a theory. You raise an eyebrow. They think it's the rats. You stare at her. The fleas on the rats, actually. Something in the blood. It sounds absurd. It sounds oddly specific. You take the letter. Back home, as twilight stretches long fingers across the rooftops, you read it by candlelight. It's full of wild ideas, tiny creatures too small to see jumping from host to host. They don't call them germs yet. That word hasn't been born, but you see it forming. A new story, a sharper truth. Maybe someday a real cure. You pour a glass of preserved plum wine and sit by the window. The mask rests beside you like a sleeping bird. In the distance, you hear another bell. But just one. One is better than 12. You sip. The taste is bright, bitter, ancient. Like memory itself. And as the stars blink awake above the dark rooftops, you whisper something you haven't said aloud in months. I think we're going to make it. You find yourself tracing your fingers over the seams of the mask. That long beak, once so absurd, now familiar, almost comforting. Strange how the mind reshapes what once seemed monstrous into something nearly sacred. You remember your first day wearing it, stumbling out into the streets, feeling like a parody of a healer. Now it's part of your silhouette. Like a priest's robes or a knight's armor. Funny how terror and routine can start to blur. The streets are quieter now, but it's a different kind of quiet. Less tense, more watchful. People no longer hide behind their shutters when you pass, they peer out. Some even wave. A little boy holds up a picture he's drawn of you stick limbs. Huge eyes and impossibly long nose. In the background, a sun with a face is smiling. You give him a small bow. In a world rebuilding itself, gestures are everything. You turn down a narrow alley toward a house you haven't visited in weeks. A widow lives there once, fierce now frail. You used to bring her dried figs and orange peel to chew on. She said it made her feel noble. Last time, she couldn't stand. You knock gently. No answer. But when you turn the knob, the door creaks open and she's there upright, brushing her hair. She smiles without teeth. Didn't think I'd make it, she says. You sit beside her while she talks about her late husband. How he would have made fun of all the fruit in the house. He hated pears, she laughs. But now I keep a jar just for spite. She gives you one. Take it, for your collection. You don't have a collection, but you accept it anyway. Outside, the scent of roasted chestnuts drifts from a cart. You buy 2 paper cones and hand one to a passing soldier. He nods, wordless. He's missing a hand, but walks with purpose. Like someone who's found meaning in the rubble. You pass a mural being painted on a stone wall. A circle of masked doctors. Around them, herbs flames a serpent swallowing its tail. In the center, a radiant heart made of fruit. Apples, lemons, pomegranates. Strange. Symbolic. Surreal. You ask the painter what it means. She shrugs. It's just what came out. Art doesn't always explain itself. Later that night, a friend invites you to a gathering, quiet secret. A circle of thinkers, alchemists, midwives, scholars, travelers. People tired of being silent. They sit around a cracked marble table passing around manuscripts and copper tokens. One of them, a woman with an owl tattoo on her wrist, reads aloud a passage about invisible forces. Contagion without contact. Illness moving faster than footsteps. Historians still argue whether these early gatherings planted the seeds of epidemiology. Some say they were the first sparks of science. Others dismiss them as speculative salons full of superstition and wine. The truth, as always, probably lies somewhere between curiosity and desperation. You speak little but listen closely. And as the candles gutter low, someone says, "We should write this down. All of it." Everyone nods. You glance at your hands, ink stained, shaking slightly. You haven't written much lately, but something inside you stirs. Maybe it's time. Maybe the world that survives this will need stories, not just warnings, but memories. You leave the gathering just before dawn. The streets are slick with mist. A cat follows you for half a block, then disappears down a drain. Somewhere a rooster crows late or early, it's hard to say. Back at your dwelling, you sit at your desk. The mask watches from its hook. You unroll a sheet of parchment. You dip the quill. And for the first time in weeks, you write not a name, not a dosage, not a death, but a sentence. I was there and I remembered. It's not much, but it's a start. The candle flickers low, casting long shadows across your desk as you continue to write. I was there, and I remember the sentence stares back at you, demanding more. Your hand hesitates over the page, not from exhaustion, but from the weight of everything left unsaid. There are too many moments, too many faces, and too many small absurdities to know where to begin. So you don't begin at the beginning, you start in the middle where most lives live. You write about the woman who insisted on paying for your visit in buttons. Different shapes, different metals, all warm from her hands. You write about the boy who tied lavender around your ankle when he thought you were asleep, so the monsters wouldn't follow you home. You even write about the time a merchant offered you a barrel of wine in exchange for a quick exorcism, and how you ended up drinking the wine with him under a fig tree while his parrot mocked both of you from above. You write it all. The serious, the strange, the things no one would believe. You write about fear, but also how fear changed. It started sharp and cold like a dagger, but then it softened into habit like a threadbare robe. You stopped fearing death so much and started fearing forgetting instead. Forgetting what the air smelled like at dawn when no bells rang. Forgetting the way silence grew thick enough to feel. Historians still argue whether this period was a medical failure or a social transformation. Whether plague doctors saved lives or simply symbolized the panic of a crumbling world. Whether the fruit-stuffed beaks were medicine theater or both. But you don't argue. You just write. Because sometimes stories carry truths facts can't touch. And as you write, you hear footsteps in the hallway. Familiar, slow, deliberate. You open the door, expecting no one. It's your apprentice. He's carrying a candle and your old beak mask carefully wrapped in cloth. "Thought you might want this," he says. You take it, not to wear but to remember. Together you sit on the stoop. No words pass between you. You both stare at the stars farther tonight somehow. Like they've drawn back to make room for what's growing on Earth. For the rebuilding, the reimagining. A breeze stirs, carrying the faint scent of burnt rosemary and ripe oranges. Below, in the city's heart, a crowd gathers. Not in fear, not in protest, but in celebration. Lanterns bob like fireflies. Children run barefoot. Someone sings in a language you can't quite name. You smile. It's not over, not really, not ever. But it's changed. And so have you. The tools of your trade, your robe, your ledger, even your herbs have become something else. Relics, symbols, clues in the mosaic of memory. You're no longer just a healer or a collector of symptoms or a figure cloaked in black. You're a witness, a keeper of the weird, the terrible, and the tender. And as the candle between you flickers once more, you close your journal, pressing the fruit token inside as a bookmark. Just in case someone finds it later. Because someday someone will want to know what it felt like. And you'll have left them something more than dust. And now, as the journey ends, let your breathing slow. Let your shoulders soften. The mask rests quietly on its hook. The fruit, dried and sweet, sits untouched in its bowl. The flames have burned low and the noise of the world has retreated to a gentle hush. You are not in a city anymore. You are not in a plague-ridden alleyway, nor a candlelit apothecary. nor a trembling courtyard lined with masked figures. You are in your bed, warm, safe. Still, outside the wind brushes gently past the trees, and perhaps just perhaps you imagine the rustle of leaves as the whispered voices of those who came before. The ones who tended wounds, who feared shadows, who found strange hope in hollow masks and scented pouches. They aren't gone. They're stories now. And stories never truly die. Tonight you've wandered through one of them. Walked its crooked streets, met its anxious hearts. Felt the way even absurdity can grow familiar. You've learned gently that history isn't just facts on a page, but the small aching choices made in candlelight. The laughter that sneaks through grief. The rituals that make no sense except when they do. You've seen that even the strangest masks can be worn with honor, and even the strangest times can offer something tender. So let your breath slow, let your thoughts drift. There is nothing left to worry about tonight. The past is quiet, the doctors have gone home, and the fruit is just fruit again. Sleep well.
you you.